Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Halloween special. Today, we'll be looking at 3 stories revolving around 3 engines. So, without further ado, let's get started. Long ago, on the London, Brighton, and South Coast Railway, there was a tank engine called the LBSER E2 class. One of these engines was numbered 101. He didn't have a name, just a number. He was a cocky engine and thought he knew best than everyone, including the manager. The other engines warned him, but he never listened. Puh! I can do better than you guys, he would always say. The other engines would just roll their eyes and ignore them. Some of the other engines tried to warn him too. If there's danger on the line, you shouldn't go there, they said. 101 paid no attention. Eventually, this came back to haunt him one tragic night. One night, 101 was on his way home. Then there was trouble. As he reached the top of the hill, something snapped. His brakes had failed. He hadn't gotten his brakes maintained properly. 101 was scared. He tried to apply his brakes, but they wouldn't work. He raced and roared. 101 flew faster around the bend. To make matters worse, there was a train up ahead, and an LBSER E1 was shunting that train. "Look out, mate! Incoming!" cried 101. But it was too late. 101 crashed into the back of the train and came off the rails. There was suddenly a loud explosion as metal, coal, and paint splintered everywhere. The next morning, all they found of 101 was his destroyed remains. 104, another tank engine of his class, just sighed. "I warned him, but he wouldn't listen," he said, even though he was younger than 101. Though, on certain nights, some workmen will tell you that when the night is out, they see the ghost of 101 roaming the rails, but he never reaches the yard. Long ago, on the Great Northern Railway, there was a K1 named Mikey. He was a quiet engine. He was humble and a little shy. He mainly kept to himself while doing his work. He did his work without fuss, though, and was always on time. One night, Mikey was taking a goods train. Just as Mikey was coming toward a bend, trouble happened. Something snapped. The freight cars bashed and bumped into Mikey and pushed him down the other side of the bend. Mikey was scared. He put on his brakes with full force. Then, disaster struck. The track in front of him gave way, and he plunged into the ravine below. He was never found again. The next morning, they hauled the damaged freight cars to the scrapyard. Some of the cars were repaired, the others were scrapped. Though on certain nights, just after Halloween, the sound of an engine racing past can be heard. A flash of black can be seen, and then in a blink of an eye, the engine is gone into the night. Gone. without a trace. Long ago, on the London, Brighton, and South Coast Railway, there was an engine being worked on called the LBSER H1 class. This class was an Atlantic, like the LNERC ones from the Great Northern Railway, except this one was a little different. These engines were painted brown with yellow lining and had the words LBSER on their tenders. However, one of these engines was different compared to the rest of the class. This engine was painted in the Great Eastern Railway blue livery. He didn't have a name, just a number, 61. 61 was a boastful, cocky, and rude engine, and his siblings had to admit that he was the only one who had a different color. I'm the only one who works hard than any of my siblings, he would always say. The other members of his class would just roll their eyes and carry on with their work. However, little did 61 know that trouble would soon struck one tragic night. One night, 61 was pulling a passenger train down the line. He was making good time. Suddenly, there was trouble. 61 saw some coal cars that were uncoupled from another train. 61 knew he wasn't going to make it. But deep down inside, he thought he could make it. So he charged for them. But the signalman switched the points just in time. Then there was more trouble. 61 was heading towards some buffers. He smashed into the buffers and came off the rails, taking his passengers with him. The next morning, they hauled 61 back onto the rails. The manager came to see him. He was most annoyed. Really useful engines don't try to do a dangerous stunt like that. 61 felt terrible. He couldn't speak. The manager had no choice but to order him to be scrapped. But little did they know that the ghost of 61 is still roaming the rails to this day. Wow, those were some pretty dark stories, were they? Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this special. Well, now I'm off to the sheds to get some rest. But until I see you again, good night.